Hello and welcome to The Voice Vibe. My name is Philippe Hall. I'm your host, and today I have a special guest, Lara Chapman, founder of Voxtape Studios. I met Lara last year. We started collaborating and we've had a really good time. She is a lot of fun. We have a lot of things in common, and she really knows her stuff. She's a great singer songwriter. And today, when we talked, I asked her what she would like to share with singers out there. And one thing that's very important to her, and I absolutely share this belief and feeling and conviction, is that singing should feel good. So if your singing is not feeling good, it's a clear sign that something is off. So we're going to talk about how to make your singing feel good. Also, I'd like you to get to know Lara a little bit, and I'm going to introduce her and bring her on right now. Hello, Lara. How you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm doing lovely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You look beautiful today.
Thank you. Just for you, Philippe. Just for you.
Well, one of the fun things that I learned about you when we first met, and I'm just going to mention that because we just talked about it snowing in Switzerland, is that you're from
Yeah.
Switzerland. And I'd actually been to your hometown, and oh my God, Thun, Switzerland is gorgeous. It's the Alps around this deep,
Yeah.
crystal clear glacier lake, and the old town is really so quaint and charming. So
It is. I do miss it, but I'm so excited that I get to go home and visit my family there this weekend. I can't wait. I'm not very excited for the snow. I'm not gonna lie. But it's okay. It's all about family, and yeah, Tune is gorgeous. My husband, he's from Indiana, so like super flat, right? No mountains, no like we have lakes here, but they're gross. Sorry. They're gross. Okay. Swiss lakes are beautiful, clear blue. You can see everything. It's gorgeous. So yeah, I'm really excited to go see everyone and see the mountains and the lakes and yeah, most importantly my family.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. It's pretty amazing. You get to Switzerland, you're like, oh, this is what rivers are supposed to look like. They're clean. It's
Yes.
like I can see the
Yes.
bottom. I can see fish. What's going on? What happened to the rest of the world?
Yeah, and they're blue, right? Like
Mm,
here in the Midwest, all the lakes are green, and to me that just looks dirty. And
I
then
know.
Grant, my husband, he just says like, "Oh yeah, like where you're from, that's like a friggin' postcard." Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what people think of when they think of Switzerland because it looks like a postcard. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to have grown up there and that I still get to go home and visit a couple times a year.
Yes. Well, one of these times we'll have to do a voice workshop
Yes. Oh
there.
my god, that would be so cool. Oh, don't tempt me with a good time. Let's do it.
Yes, let's definitely do it. I'll invite all my contacts from Europe and we'll just have a really great time. Who wouldn't want to come to Switzerland, honestly?
Right?
So tell us how did you get to the United States? Obviously, I want to get into what inspired you to become a singer, your journey,
Yeah.
your struggles, and tell us, yeah, how did you get to the U.S. first of all?
Yeah, so I grew up in Switzerland, right? I finished high school there as well, and I came to the U.S. for college. I first went to the New York Film Academy in New York City. I studied musical theater and acting for film and TV. Learned that I am not born to do musical theater and that I don't love it. So up until that point, like I only ever really sang like pop music, like contemporary pop, rock, like that kind of stuff. And I didn't understand that musical theater music and contemporary music were very different because I had very limited knowledge in musical theater. Lord knows how I got into that school, but I did. And I was like, yeah, why not dance, sing, and act at the same time?
Yeah.
That sounds great, right? Yeah, no. I quickly learned that musical theater music and also the way you sing musical theater songs is very different from contemporary music. And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no. That's not for me." And even like my teachers were all like, "Yeah, you're great, but you don't belong here." And I'm like, "Yes, I do not." And so I finished my 2-year program. It was a 2-year program. I finished that, And then I was like, okay, cool. How can I stay in the United States? Because I was there on a student visa.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, how can I get like, yeah, how can I stay? Because once you're done with your program, your student visa expires and you have to leave again. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Berkeley in Boston, Berkeley College of Music. I auditioned for that school. I got in. I did my whole bachelor's there in songwriting, vocal performance, and music business. And as I was, studying there, I went on a spring break trip with the school down to Nashville. And I met down there with a manager, and I actually got signed to that manager when I was down in Nashville. And so I finished my summer semester or spring semester at Berkeley in Boston, moved down to Nashville to write and record and release music, perform, and do all that stuff as I was finishing up school online. So I switched to Berkeley Online to finish my degree because my parents were like, you have to have a degree. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get a degree. And so I finished school online and, did the whole artist thing down in Nashville. Eventually moved up to Indianapolis, which is where I am now because my husband's from here. He has his business here. I can do my job from anywhere. He can't. So yeah, that's why I'm up here now. And, like as I was performing and releasing my own music and all that stuff, I was teaching voice lessons on the side because I needed to make money. I'm not gonna lie, I needed to make money.
Fair enough.
And I was like, okay, let me just teach some voice lessons, see if I can find some clients, started posting like on my Instagram page, like my personal Instagram and on my Facebook, and I got a couple students, and then those couple students turned into more students and more students and more students, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much more fun than being an artist. Right? Because like when you're an artist, like in pop music, it's not just like you write music, you record music, and you perform music. That is what we all think it is, but that's
Mm.
just like a small part
Mm-hmm.
of the music industry. And I loved that. I hated everything else. So I had like this internal struggle of like, wait, hold on. Like, I always thought I wanted to be a performer my entire life. And I did everything in my life to get to that point. And now I'm doing it. And now I don't want to do it. What is going on? And I, liked teaching and coaching more than being the artist myself. And I was like, oh my gosh. So for a good year and a half, I stuck to the whole artist thing anyways, just because of my ego. Like, I was more concerned with what other people were going to think about me than what I really wanted to do because I was like, well, they're going to think I'm a failure because like I quit the whole music thing. And yeah, that was a little a little stupid
Oh,
from my end.
no, I understand. I absolutely understand. I think it's the message and what you're communicating is really important. I mean, you you first of all, I think what's really important, you just went for it. This is what I want to do. I'm
Hmm.
getting in a musical school in the US. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, they thought you had talent and accepted you, and you got there and you're like, "Oh, but this isn't for me."
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm gonna take where I'm at and what I've learned, and I'm gonna go this direction. And then you went that
Hmm.
direction, you discovered more, and then you the same thing. Well, this isn't exactly for me. And then you
Yeah.
and then there's that whole phase of like, oh, they're gonna think I quit, the
Yeah.
music industry. And I have not exactly the same experience. I mean, I did musical theater, song and dance for decades, and
Hmm.
and absolutely loved it. So I had a different experience. I got there and I'm like,
Yeah.
let me entertain you. I thought this is what I was supposed to do, and then
Yeah.
I changed over to opera, and I kept doing musical, but I started doing opera, and all my colleagues like,
Hmm.
"What are you doing?" I had fans going, "Why are you in that crappy little production?" I'm like, "Well, this is what I want to do," and people didn't
Yeah.
understand, but it was a little difficult. And I had my whole checklist, and then my wife helped me realize, she's like, "Do you have to sing at every one of the theaters on your list before you feel like you're actually an accomplished artist?" And I thought, hmm. She said, "Don't you see that everybody you're on stage with has sung at some of those theaters, but they haven't sung at all of them?" So I'm like,
All of
actually,
them.
you're right. I'm kind of singing with the people. I'm singing with the people. I'm on stage. My partner, my duet partner, my my colleagues, they're singing at the Met. They're singing in Milan. They're in Milano. They're
Hmm.
singing here, and you've sung in a lot of theaters they haven't sung at. So maybe I don't have to really check every single box.
Yeah.
So it was good realization, and yeah. Also, sometimes people ask me, "Why aren't you on stage?" I'm like, "Well,
Mhm.
this is what I'm doing now, and it's a lot of fun." So I think
Yeah.
I just want to communicate that I can relate, and I admire that, and I would like to communicate that to any clients I work with and any singers, artists that are out there listening. Also, go with it. Go with your passion.
Hmm.
You might find out that you're going to take a different direction. If you feel inside that's the right thing for you, then go with it. Obviously, it's worked out for you. You didn't leave beautiful, picturesque tune Switzerland thinking you were going to create Fox Tape Studios.
No, or to live in Indiana out of all places.
Hey,
No,
Indiana's
absolutely
nice.
not.
It's a nice place to live, right? But it is very different.
It's okay. It's very different. No, it's great. And I no regrets. No regrets. I love our little home that we created here, and no, I'm very happy. But no, yeah, Vox tape and vocal coaching was absolutely not something that I thought I was ever going to get into. My mom is a teacher, so I'm just going to blame it on her. I have apparently those coaching teaching genes. So I'm just going to blame it
You
on
are
her. It's her
very
fault.
good. You are very good. You have this great
Thank you.
energy. You've worked with my clients in an intensive last summer, which was really
Hmm.
fun, and everybody really enjoyed it. And I love this creativity. I'd like to ask you a question about
Yes.
something you shared with me as you were working as a singer, and tell us about your vocal journey. It wasn't always just a
Yes.
perfect smooth road, right?
No, no, it sure was not. So, my entire life, I was always like a very heavy kind of singer. It's very chest dominant, very heavy. And so yeah, I would always struggle with, getting tired quickly, not being able to sing high. So I started voice lessons when I was 13. I wanted to start way earlier, but in Switzerland, all the music schools there, they don't let you take lessons before 13. So I had to wait. I was like, okay, 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 okay. When can I start? So I finally was 13 and I could start my voice lessons. And in that voice lesson, my voice teacher, Beatrice, her name is Beatrice. Oh, love Beatrice. She told me about this thing, the head voice. And I was like, oh my God, I can now sing all these high notes. And I kid you not, my range expanded by almost an octave in that first lesson. And I was like,
Wow.
this is it. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I love it. Thank you very much. Let's keep doing this. So, anyways, I was always a very heavy, a very chest dominant singer, which, the more I started singing like in college and, doing productions outside of school and with the school, and post school, right? Like with the whole artist thing and everything that I did, like I started performing a lot. There was this one summer where I was playing 4 to 5 shows that were like 3 hours long every single week for like an entire summer long. And I had to cancel 2 shows, I think, because of vocal fatigue. But at the end of that summer, I was like, oh my God, I am dead. And like as I was playing these shows too, like I had to adjust the key of some of the songs halfway through because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get tired. Like, what is going on? So, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I did a lot of yelling on pitch. And not necessarily like beautifully singing and letting the voice come out freely. It was really just more of a yelling on pitch, which is kind of sad to admit. And honestly, like I was talking to one of my coaches on my team here at Vox Save Studios about my whole journey. And she was like, you know what? I can't believe all of these teachers that you worked with in New York and in Boston and everywhere, that they didn't stop you. Like
Mm-hmm.
they just let you keep doing what you were doing. And like no one was telling you like, hey, I'm saying this with a lot of love, but you're going to end up in trouble if you keep going like this. No one, not a single person told me that. And yeah, I did end up in a lot of trouble because I had a vocal injury because of all of this abuse and misuse of the voice. I ended up with vocal pre-nodules. So they're basically like vocal nodules, but they're just very early stage, very small, not calluses at all, just little bumps on the vocal
Yeah.
folds essentially. And yeah, I would always like lose my voice for a day, but it would come back, and then it would turn into 2 days and it came back. And eventually I lost my voice for 4 weeks. I couldn't speak, I couldn't sing. It was so painful for
Ouch.
4 weeks. Yeah, it was bad. And was okay, like, okay, I gotta go see a laryngologist, and had vocal pre-nodules. I had to do voice therapy and all that stuff. And that was my wake-up call, right? That's where I was like, okay, I can't keep going like this. It doesn't work. And my laryngologist also said, like, like you can keep going if you want, but you're gonna end up in my office a lot. And
Yeah.
eventually you're gonna have to have surgery because it's just gonna get worse and not better. And so yeah, I had that really big wake up call in my singing journey. And that's where I was like, all right, everything needs to change. And that's where I started to pay attention to what singing feels like rather than what singing sounds like. Before, I was always very concerned with how good do I sound, right? I just wanted to sound good, and I wanted to reach certain notes no matter what it took, right? I was like, I'm going to get to that note. I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do it. And yeah, that's when I started to pay attention to what singing feels like instead. And that's when everything
Yes.
changed. That's when I started sounding better, right? Like when
Yes.
singing feels good, you sound good.
Wait. We got to say this again for the audience. Pay attention to what singing feels like and prioritize that over what it sounds like.
Yes, please do. Pay attention to what singing feels like instead of what it sounds like. Because guess what? If it feels good, it's going to sound good too. And if it doesn't feel good, it's not going to sound as good as it could,
Yes,
right?
there's this is a magical thing, right? It seems like magic, but let's get into that now. Often, if you're a coach, you work with clients, you work with singers, and I remember some of my really famous colleagues they say, no, you have to, the volume's in the relaxation. I'm like, what are you talking about? How can
Yeah.
volume be in a relaxation? Because it's,
Hmm.
you have to like press, you have to, support the
Hmm.
crap out of that high note, get it really loud, and they demonstrate, and I'm like, how do you do it? And they say, and he this was a colleague, he would just say, this is the easiest thing. He's like, and I could hear the more he like relaxed in his body, and the sound would just
Hmm.
get bigger and bigger. It's like there's some secret in there, and clients do experience that when I just point out. I'm like, okay, great, now work 10% less, and they do it again.
Yes,
Okay,
I
now
literally
work ten
always
percent
say that.
less.
Always, always. I'm like, that was great. Now do less and try again. But I
Yes. So what
usually
is
tell
that?
them, give me less volume, right? So, like, when I
Yes.
tell them, like, work less, they don't usually understand what I mean. But I tell them, okay, do the same thing at 50% of the volume. And then that's when everything starts opening up, the tension releases, they start to relax more. And then they're like, all right, that felt great, but it wasn't quieter. And I'm like, that was the goal. Right?
Yes.
Like, I don't actually want you to be quieter. I just want you to work less. But if I tell you to be quieter, that's when it clicks in their brain for most of them at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I think about most of coaching is guiding the singer to experience the optimal balance of the sound
Hmm.
they're after when it feels good, and
Yeah.
sounds right. And then the singer needs, their mind just needs to get that happy endorphin and go, yay! And then the
Yeah.
mind kind of locks that in. But you're right. Oftentimes when you tell a singer, and I'm sure somebody out there is listening is going, huh? Sing it 50% less loud, or relax, or do release and don't work as hard. What usually happens is singers tend to relax then everything. So
Mm.
I'm trying to keep us, it's so easy to get distracted. But what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say is you can reduce the volume by reducing pressure, but if you reduce your effort level and you let the whole embouchure and inside and everything you're doing on the inside and the resonance strategy, if you let all that relax too, we just kind of lost
Yeah.
the sound design. So it takes a little bit of understanding. Don't stop doing the good things, just don't overpower them.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, especially when it comes to belting
Mm-hmm.
or reaching high notes, right? Like things that we consider difficult to do, that's when we start working harder than we have to,
Yeah.
right? So basically, all we're trying to say is like, do exactly what you just did, right? Like, do the same thing, but don't try so hard, right? Like now pretend that this is easy. Do exactly the same thing, but pretend it's easy. And that's when you get to the notes, but they're
Mm-hmm.
free and open and resonant and not
Yes.
forced and pushed.
Yeah, I like that because it's when they're free and open and resonant, they get more acoustic energy. They actually carry
Yeah.
better, they're actually louder, and the whole timbre and resonance structure improves. So there has to be
Yeah.
an amount of, if things get too tight with the overpowering, then they lose resonance potential. And when you take out
Yeah.
some of the effort, they gain resonance potential. It's almost counterintuitive at some point. So how then do we make singing feel good? And how can we make that shift from sound over does it feel good?
Hmm.
How we're going to just talk about how to make singing feel good. So we're talking now about how much physical effort, squeeze,
Hmm.
pressure, all those things. How do we how do we identify, maybe as a starting point, how do we identify if we're doing too much?
Oh, that is a great question. Uh, there's a fair chance that you are. But how do you identify it? Like, I truly believe like we can all work less, right? But how do you identify it? I would say, obviously, like pay attention. Like, if you're feeling any discomfort, any sort of tickle, pain, you're getting tired, you have a small range, vibrato is very difficult for you to do, your voice is not very agile, like all of those things are like symptoms of working too hard and having tension in your singing, right? So like extrinsic muscles like the neck, the jaw, the tongue, the constrictor muscles, those are your swallowing muscles, right? Like those might all be engaging on you when they're not supposed to, right? And then we have intrinsic muscles within the vocal folds that might be, squeezing a little bit on you, especially that lovely little muscle that's connected at the end of your vocal folds that's responsible for bringing the vocal folds together to vibrate. That muscle there is squeezing in a lot of people, myself included. I have to work on this all the time so that we're not getting too much compression, too much squeeze in the vocal folds, right? But anyways, so identifying it is like feeling what does singing feel like, and look at your range, look at your agility, look at your vibrato. All of those things are symptoms of working too hard. And then also, sometimes like I get singers, they're like, I feel good when I sing, like I don't really get tired, especially with singers who are performing regularly. So I just did a session with a performer. He has like 20 gigs a month. Every single month he does a lot of weddings and corporate events and bars and things like that. So his gigs are all very long, right? So he plays for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, 20 shows a month, which is a lot, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he is so used to it that he doesn't really feel tired from singing anymore because that's just he's built up those muscles, right? He's got it. And so we just work together to figure out, okay, like, can we make this any easier at all? And then that's when he was like, oh, okay, I see the difference now. I see how I was working way harder than I had to get the sound out. And one of the biggest indicators that I listen for in singers is, do you feel like you're reaching the end of your range? Right? Like when we're belting notes or when we're mixing notes, like,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like, oh, we're getting kind of close to hitting the ceiling? Because like we can hear that. Like we as your audience, and especially people like Philippe and I, right? Like vocal coaches, we can hear when you're reaching the end of your range, even though it's not at all the end of your range. It just feels like it is because you're pushing, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest indicators, I would say.
Well, this has just popped into mind, and it could be a nice segue into. We have a very fun quiz that you prepared. Uh, some singers, I tend to say about 75% of singers are overpowering, and
Yeah.
maybe 25% or less don't want to work or give that extra pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So, so generally, for the majority of singers, you're doing too much, including myself, and and some singers just aren't doing enough. So it's very rare.
Yeah.
It's rare that I have
Yeah.
to come on, let's go there. And as soon as I get a singer to let's engage their body more and increase the subglottal pressure, as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we get them to do that and they get the note, let's say in their belt, they're getting a forte sound. As soon as we achieve that, really the very next thing I say is, can you do that again with 10% less power? So
Mm.
sometimes, I mean, I don't think you as a singer should be afraid to go there, because that is going to help you find your limit. Like, okay, that's like max, and I then realize, okay, I don't need to do that much. Where's
Yeah.
that sweet spot? But don't be afraid of going there. We just don't want you to overwork all the time. Right? And I'd said
Mm-hmm.
that for years. I worked with different coaches, but I would say, I just have a feeling I'm working too hard.
Mm-hmm.
I sounded good. I was working, but it's just, I'm working too hard for this sound. It should be easier. So,
That is so interesting because, like, I see a lot of the opposite in my students. A lot of my students are like, well, I have to work hard because singing is hard, right? Like, if I want to sound as good as the greats, right? Like, think Whitney Houston, for example, right? Like, if I want to sound as good as them, like, I have to work hard. And when singing is hard, that's when I know I'm doing it right. And I'm like, it's actually exactly the opposite. Singing is supposed to feel easy and effortless and free, and not like you're lifting a bunch of heavy weights. That's when you know you're doing it right, not when it
yeah.
feels hard, right? And I had this one student, his name is Shane. He's a singer-songwriter, and he was like, I almost feel guilty singing like this because it's too easy. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want to feel. That's when you know you're doing it right.
Yeah, I'm sure the physical sensation varies a lot depending on
Oh
what
yeah.
genre you're in. Yeah, the people that are working physically the most in singing are your death metal singers doing all the heavy effects, and your opera singers. There's just a lot more physical demand,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody that's doing mostly pop or easy volume jazz and things like that, you're never going to be needing that much physical activity. So that sensation is going to be comparatively very low.
Very
But I can
different.
tell you, for even though if I'm doing death metal effects, if it's in the right spot, it feels if there's a sense of ease. I know I'm working. Same thing with opera. You
Mm-hmm.
are definitely investing more physical energy, but the feeling in the throat and the body when it's in that sweet spot is almost effortless at a
Mm-hmm.
different physical energy level. So
Yeah.
I just want to communicate to people, singing takes coordination, it takes activity, it does take
Mhm.
energy, but that's a difference. So no, you're not going to feel like you're laying in bed. It's not that easy.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Comparatively to what you might be doing now, it's going to
Yeah.
feel
Well,
easy.
I even had been to lots of open mics with colleagues, and there's kind of this emotional support for singers that look like they're working hard.
Mm,
Is it such a strange phenomenon? Look at them just working. The veins are popping out of their neck. They're screaming and they're
yeah.
so into it, and somehow that gets some sort of respect at some levels. But I know that the singers have been doing it for a long time. They're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But it's just, I
Yeah.
hope he learns to, or she learns to just calm that down as they go on in their career, because otherwise that voice
Yeah.
it's going to lose its shine.
It
So,
absolutely will. Is what happened to me. It doesn't mean you can't get it back because I got
right,
it back.
right.
But yeah, no, for sure.
So you've prepared this fun vocal persona quiz. I put the link in the description. So if you're listening or you're watching this video later, just go to the description. There's a link in there. You want to tell us a little bit about what that is and how that may help?
Yes, absolutely. Well, like you said, you believe like there's like 75% of singers are like, they're doing too much, and there's about 25% of singers that are like, come on, give me a little more, give me a little more. And I would agree. I feel like that's a pretty um spot on like split. I definitely don't think it's 50-50. I would definitely say heart like the overpowers are in the majority. I'm one of those.
Me too.
I am not special. I am not special. I'm one of those people. Okay. Have been my entire life. But, anyways, so that, with the voice, it's like, it's really difficult to learn how to sing off of YouTube videos or Instagram reels or TikToks or whatever, because every voice is different, right? We all have the same anatomy, we're all built the same, but the way we approach singing is different, right? That's why we have songbirds and powerhouse singers, which is what I would call them, right? So you are either like someone who's not working quite enough, or you're someone who's like working a little too hard, right? So, and then there's other personas as well, but it's like, okay, we need to kind of like personalize vocal training, because it's like if you don't have experience and you don't have a certain level of awareness already, it's really difficult to know what you need, right? Like you might be experiencing symptoms, so you're googling or youtubing your symptoms, and you're like, how do I fix that? And you see exercises and techniques on fixing that symptom, but it might not be the root cause. So it might work for a little bit, but then you feel stuck again, or maybe it doesn't work at all and you feel stuck. And it's like, why is this not working? It's because you're not really addressing the things that you need to do to help you see improvements in your voice. So basically, I try to come up with a way to personalize vocal training without being in a one on one session. So I came up with a couple different questions, and you can just go through it, answer those questions, and then it spits out your persona. And no, persona and voice type is not the same thing, right? So like soprano and tenor and bass and alto and all that stuff, that's your voice type. Your vocal persona is very different. Like it doesn't really talk about your range, which voice types is, like your range and what you sound like and blah blah blah. But vocal personas definitely focus more on the tendencies that you have as a singer. Do you tend to push, or do you tend to not give me enough? Right? Do you tend to not worry about that stuff at all, but rather expressing yourself, right? So it's basically personalized vocal training without being in a one-on-one session. And so when you get the answer to the quiz, where you're like, okay, I am this persona, you're also getting a free training for that vocal persona and a warm up track for that vocal persona as well. Just so you can see, like, oh, okay, I'm now making progress because I'm doing the right things for my voice. And if you're not seeing progress after that, you probably didn't get the right answer because of an awareness level, right? Like I truly believe like if you want to make progress in singing, you need to be aware of what you're doing and what's happening. And if you have zero experience, it's so difficult to know and to be aware, right? Because we're
Yeah,
focusing just on what we sound like, and that's pretty much it. So
it takes
awareness is
time.
everything.
Takes time. I
Yeah.
I have, and I noticed that with clients I work with. Obviously, some clients, they'll tell me after a year or a year and a half, I couldn't feel anything. That everybody was saying you got to feel this and that. I didn't feel anything, but now I'm
Hmm.
feeling everything, and I don't know
Yeah.
what the right thing is to feel. So there is
Yeah.
an evolution to this awareness. Part
Hmm.
of part of becoming a good singer that sings healthily when singing feels good is developing that self-awareness. I think this
Yeah.
will be very, very fun and can help you through this fun little quiz get a better idea of, hey, what kind of type, singing type, persona am I? How do I approach this? And maybe you'll get some fun insights and that allow you to approach your singing and consider new things.
Yeah.
Consider new things. So I think if you're watching and you're watching this later, you got to click that link. It's a fun quiz, and
It's free. You got nothing to lose. Might as
it's
well.
free. Yeah, and it'll be fun. It might help you realize that, oh, I actually need to work more, or no, I'm working way too hard, or that's my tendency. You
Yeah.
know, we all have certain tendencies in life. So can we
Yes.
perhaps go through this uh, just spontaneous? Let's do a little back and forth and play tennis. All right, and
Okay.
let's say this podcast is all about, or this live stream is all about how to make your singing feel good. So
Hmm.
let's start with what we did a little bit earlier. Um, what's one thing that's a sign that your singing is not feeling good? Tennis. Like, I'll start and pass to you.
Okay.
If your throat feels really tight when you sing, there's a clear sign that it could feel better. What's another sign?
You feel like you're reaching a ceiling in your range. You can't go
Great,
higher.
great. Your voice tickles after you sing.
Oh, yes, you have to cough from singing. Oh, that's a
There,
big one. That's a
there you
big
go.
one.
Yeah, you feel pressure in your throat.
Yes, you don't have a very agile voice, so like riffing is a little difficult for you. It's stiff. It feels stiff.
Yes, that's so good. Uh, it's hard to find vibrato, or your vibrato is very bouncy.
Yeah.
Ah, a little bit too
Yeah.
wobbly.
A little too wobbly, a little aggressive, like a little manicured almost, right? Okay. Oh wait, I just had one, but now I lost it.
All right,
What haven't we covered yet?
we'll just say that one went out
Mm,
of bounds, so I got to reserve. I'll reserve you another one. Uh, your voice gets tired quickly when you sing.
well, yeah, that's an obvious one.
That
What
was an
else?
ace.
I need like a list of the things that we already said, so
Just
I
go.
can see
Just
what we already said. Let's see. Uh, stiff. I did talk about stiff, feeling stiff, range, getting tired. Um, what? Horse?
yeah. I'm doing horse. I'm doing horse. I don't have little
Oh, you're
voice.
getting horse
You're
from
getting
singing. Is that
horse.
what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, that's spelled differently, but I see what you're saying. Sure, sure, you're getting horse from singing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like everything.
You have to lower the key, right? There's a long, long list, but it's fun. It's just fun to play tennis back and forth with you about things that people should be on the lookout for. I wasn't
Oh,
having any of
tone.
those. Tone, yeah,
Tone is
okay,
a big
go.
one, right? Like it sounds squeezed. right? A little overly compressed. Or that's the one I had before, controlling volume. It's very difficult to control volume. That's the one
Mm-hmm.
I lost. That's the one I was looking for. Yeah,
Like that.
controlling volume or controlling your tone in general, right? Like it's you have one way of singing, but it's not like we can't play around with it. We can't go from like a compressed sound to a breathy sound, like, and just, like move quickly through the different kinds of tones that you can create. So
Yeah.
volume and tone, those are big.
Pitch. You mentioned
Pitch,
that as your journey.
yes.
I've had one well-known colleague. I had every, he just got into issues and he's never gotten help. It's really sad. A lot of famous people just don't get the right help, and you just see them. They just lower the key every time you
Mm,
see them, and as the years
yeah,
go by, and it doesn't sound any better, and it's so psychologically traumatic for them, and it
yeah.
breaks my heart. I mean, there are a lot of great artists, well-known artists. You can just hear in their voice, wow, all that beauty and that uniqueness is just fading over time. It will fade
Mm,
over time. So those are some symptoms.
yeah.
How to make your singing feel good. It's really becoming aware of little things and taking a note about it. You can then, if you're feeling a lot of pressure and tightness, you can try and reduce the
Mm,
level. But like you said, using this vocal persona quiz can help you discover a little bit more about your approach. But it's hard. It's just going to be hard for you if your only consultation source is social media, because you might not, it's very likely you're not going to get to the root cause quickly. So if you're feeling these things, you can do your best to self manage, but if they continue, you really ought to get in touch with hit me up on my site, hit Lara up for a consultation, and get some help, because that's basically what we do. We're looking to
y-
help
yeah.
people find the cause of the symptoms. You got to, if
Exactly. Like we're
yeah,
playing doctor, right? Like we're not just the medicine that's just kind of like going to make you feel good in the moment. We're
mm-hmm,
like, no, 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 no. We're going to go deep here, and we're going to address the root issues. And the thing too with like us or any other vocal, or hopefully any other vocal coach out there, good vocal coaches out there, right? Like we can do it quickly for you, right? Like we listen to you and we're like, oh yeah, we know what's going on because we've been doing this for so long. And we have a ton of experience. We know what's happening and we can help you make progress quickly. Versus when you're doing it yourself, it's like, all right, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm just going to guess. And then sometimes you guess right, right? And it works. And then other times you guess wrong. And then it takes a longer time. So in life, with anything, you're going to either spend time or you're going to spend money. Pick which one is more important to you, time or money, and then spend the
yeah.
other one, right?
Yeah, and find a balance and don't feel bad. Sometimes I had money and I took three sessions a week for months, and then other times I didn't have coaching because I need to watch my budget for a few months, or I was
Yeah.
traveling. So it can go in phases.
Oh,
One
yeah, of
thing
course.
that I would give as a tip, I mean, rounding up here, our live stream, but one thing you can do is go back to the most simple basic exercises and make sure you can do those perfectly. I did not want to do that as a singer on my singing journey. I wanted the
Mhm.
results. And so I worked too much for too long, or too hard for too long. I always had
Yeah.
that feeling, I'm working too hard. But at one point, you will be obliged to stop and go back
Mhm.
and backtrack. And basically, what you're going to find out is that there are some very, very basic, simple coordinations that you don't do perfectly. You don't do them as well as you think you do. And it's painful to go back to the simple things and really monitor and be soft and control. And
Yep.
how even is your tone? Can you sustain a tone with no vibrato? How long can you sustain a tone without it wobbling? How is your breath flow? How's your adduction? Can you go
Mhm.
from ah, ah, just breathy to clear, back and forth with no interruption? That's not as easy as it seems.
No, no. And a lot of people just want to get to the fancy stuff, right? They're like, oh, but
Yes.
I want to do the cool stuff. I want to do the fancy stuff. And I'm like, I get it. I really do. But we need to have a really, really, really solid foundation first. And we need to continue working on that solid foundation, because if you start working on just the fancy stuff, you're going to lose that, which is what happened to me. And I don't want you to do that, right? Because it's
No,
very
no.
easy to get caught up in the shiny stuff. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do
No.
it. Learn from my mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes I did.
I feel the same way. I made plenty of mistakes, and guess what? You're going to make mistakes. So the more
Yeah.
you can learn from other people's mistakes and take advice from people that have been there and done that, the better off you're going to be. So even if you look any high level sport, let's
Mhm.
say Kobe Bryant in basketball, Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi in soccer, you know,
Yeah.
every single professional athlete that is the top of their game is going to say the same thing. The way they got there was doing the simple things to perfection better than anybody else. Because when you've
Mhm.
mastered the simple, then the complex is possible. It's not even
Mhm.
possible if you don't have mastery over the simple. And you won't hurt yourself working on the simple things. Simple things are not easy to do excellently. They're simple.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm going to get off my speech box here. I just say
But it's very true. It's very important what you're saying.
it's just an easy way to give a generic guidance that if you want your singing to feel good, make sure the basics feel good and you have
Mhm.
really good control over those. That will automatically upgrade everything else. Um, yeah, well, this has been great, Lara. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. If you'd like to join us for our next, Laura's staying on with me, and we're going to open up a private Zoom call. There's a link in the description.
Yay.
And this is an opportunity. It's a private Zoom meeting where you can get together with me and my co hosts, like Laura today, and ask us personal questions and even get some personal feedback and coaching live in a private Zoom call. So click the link. It's the Voice Vibe community, the Vibe community, where you can check that out and jump on a private call with us. I'd like to remind you to, if you're not already, check out Vox Tape Studios and give Laura a follow. She has some fun, inspiring content. And take this vocal persona quiz. It'll be really fun. Laura, thanks so
Yes, and let
much
me
for
know
being
what it
on.
spits out for you and if you feel like it's accurate. Like, I want to know. So far,
Yes.
everyone I've talked to, they were like, "Oh my god, I feel so seen." I'm like, "I'm sorry, but it's a good thing."
Well, next week I'm going to be on here solo. So tune in next week. I'm going to be talking about the question: is your voice stuck down a rabbit hole? And
Ooh,
the
I'm
reason
gonna have
I
to tune in for
say
that one.
that is that often you'll discover something in your singing that makes your singing get better, more efficient. It starts feeling better. And then you'll get obsessed with it, which is a good thing. But you might get
Mhm.
obsessed to the point where you just burrow and burrow and burrow and burrow down that rabbit hole. And then you're going to get stuck. So
Yeah.
it's going to be fun to talk about. I'll see you next week. Thanks again for joining, Lara. We'll look forward to
Thanks for having
collaborating with
me.
you again soon. You bet.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.